host, KC Armstrong, has a really good heart, and I think he actually really cares what the people have to say, and I think that the idea has been great, and all these people have the opportunity to really share their stories and get their words out. I love WMAP because I hear stories that inspire me.
I happen to be of belief that everyone, doesn't matter what it is, it's how you look at it. This is WMAP, the world's most amazing people.
All right, guys, welcome back. WMAP. My name is KC Armstrong, and I'm very happy to be back on the air. Took a little break health-wise, but we're back here, and I'm very happy because the person that I'm going to be having on in a couple seconds here, I'm speaking about Marilyn Redmond. Now, Marilyn has been an author, writer. She is a monthly columnist for the Sussex newspaper. She's an expert on wellness. She does counseling, readings, and commissions for angel portraits, pets, or people. She's a writer, counselor, speaker, and she inspires people because her life has not been so easy. She had to deal with a lot of abuse, a lot of different things like we all do, but she had the strength and the determination to get back up each time it happened. So I have a lot of respect for her. And guys, with no further ado, it's my honor and privilege to bring to WMAP Miss Marilyn Redmond. Marilyn, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Well, I mean every minute of it. It's totally true. And I mean, going back, you had to overcome some pretty tough stuff.
Well, I know today we write our script before we come in, and it's part of the prologue of my Paradigm Busters Reveal the Real You book is in there. It describes that I came into this planet to help others, and I came down because I knew what the answers were. And I had to go through those experiences to come out on the other side to show people it's possible. And being through those experiences, they can relate with me. So it was necessary to go through it, but it wasn't fun.
You have to do a lot of living, I guess. Now,
it was a lot of. It got a little too exciting at some points where I've almost died 12 times, and so you start to look at life a little differently when things hit you as strongly as they have for me.
Well, I want to get into that in a minute because that's something really interesting. But I want to kind of just get in the beginning of your career. Now, you started out because you were awesome at poetry, and you actually came to New York. You flew to get an award for your poetry, right? That's where your first love was. You became confident in poetry in that realm, right?
Yes, I didn't know I was a poet, but I started getting poetry coming in. I started meditating, and guess what? That takes you into your heart. And so these poems started arriving, and there happened to be a contest in New York. First of all, I got included in their book, and then from the book of World's Greatest Poetry, they had a contest in New York, and they included me to be a recipient in that contest. I felt extremely honored. And while I was back in New York, I happened to be at dinner one night through the conference, and with some people at the table said, "Oh, you should go to the Santa Barbara Writers Conference and in Santa Barbara, and you should head down there. They're going to they meet every June." And so from that information and talking with the people about this conference, I went 8 years down to the Santa Barbara Writers Conference and learned a lot about writing, and in the meantime took writing classes up here and joined writing groups. And so up here I ended up writing an article from my Tacoma Writers Club and winning the that was an international contest, and I ended up winning that. So after those 2 wins, I decided I must be a writer and started continuing to write in a more serious vein. I took it a little more seriously than I'm just doing it.
Right. I understand. Because my question was going to be, I think you kind of just answered it, is being a writer, is that something that you choose or it kind of chooses you? Sounds like it kind of chose you.
Well, that's exactly what happened, because going through school, I was valedictorian, but my worst score, the only B I ever got in school, was in English. Putting compositions together was not my criteria for being, I just couldn't seem to put it together like everybody else did. And so I never ever expected to be a writer. That was the last thing from my mind, and it just started to evolve as the writing classes and exercises we had and whatever, and things just started to happen. It was definitely not what I set out to do originally.
That's awesome. Guys, if you're just tuning in right now, I'm speaking with the great Marilyn Redmond, and her latest book is called Road to Success. And you can get more information if you go to Amazon.com. You can get all of her books there, or go to her website, which is angelicasgifts.com. Now, Marilyn, you told me before, and I thought this is amazing when I was reading this about you, you actually died 12 times. Can you tell my audience about that?
Well, it's something that happened to me so I could learn from those experiences, that we are spiritual people having human events that we need to look at and release so we can return to our spiritual being. And so various times my husband tried to kill me. I was in a car accident, thought we were going to die. That night I prayed for God to help me. I really didn't want to die. And the angels came in and took us off the road, and I was, of course, not in any head-on collisions or part of the maniac riding and driving he was going through.
Wow.
Trying to show me. I've been off cliffs twice, actually 3 times, because the third time we didn't go off, but God pulled me out of my physical body, to show me I wouldn't die. My spirit would continue to live, and it would not be painful or harmful. But the first 2 times I went off cliffs is in my first book, Roses Have Thorns, where angels came. And when I went up the Grand Canyon edge, fortunately there was a ledge below, and we dropped about 40 feet upside down, and angels put us very cautiously, it was during a snowy winter, very cautiously upside down on this ledge, and the ranger scratched his head as we were getting aid to get our car out of there.
Oh, my God.
That nobody was hurt, and that's because, of course, the angels made sure nobody was hurt. And then nobody had an accident like that in the Grand Canyon and had come out without a scratch, and we didn't get hurt at all. The second time I went off a cliff was between Jasper and Banff National Parks in Canada. My husband passed out at the wheel, and the car wheels were going off the road, and of course the cliff was below us, and the angels came again, and Jennifer's the one, picked up the front end of the car, put the car back on the shoulder of the road, and another angel put my hand on the steering wheel so the wheels would be going the right direction towards the road rather than off the road, so that being back on the shoulder, we would be going the right direction. So those were just a couple. I almost died in the doctor's office a couple times. They were giving me some shots, and the shots missed their mark, and they were afraid I wasn't going to walk home. And while I was in this state of not knowing really what was going on, I just knew it seemed very strange, and it was like a lot of anxiety going on and very frustrating, and I didn't understand. And I just said to God, whatever side you put me on, that's the side you want me to be. So obviously things came together, and when they had me stabilized, I walked out of the doctor's office and drove myself home.
Wow.
And the second time, that same procedure caused the same trouble. Oh. And that time they pushed me into ER, and I was in the hospital getting stabilized. And again, I said, God, whatever side you want me on, when I was in that particular precarious place. I ended up recuperating and driving myself home again. So, I had angels hold my husband from stopping beating me into a pulp. All kinds of things have happened in my life. So I know today when I've tried suicide, angels came and stopped me, and I wasn't to take any more pills. I was taking pills the doctor had given me. And they put silk ropes around my arms so I couldn't take any more. That's also in my first book. And sent me home. I still wasn't ready to leave, obviously. And so it seems like each time these have occurred, it's like it's given me more understanding that there's no fear. You don't have to have fear, and it's actually beautiful on the other side. That's why they call it heaven. The technical word is nirvana. And so, But you take away the ego sphere, and there is nothing to be fearful or worry about. It is just a beautiful place. And to be, it's exceptionally loving and gracious and caring. And so people are afraid of dying, but it's actually, in fact, there's times when I say, God, I'm ready to come back. I think I've had enough right now.
Yeah.
So, whatever you put me in is fine, but, when you're ready to take me, it's not a problem, because I know things go very well on the other side.
Wow, that's so interesting. And guys, right there, Marilyn's talking about her first book, Roses Have Thorns, Encouragement on Evolving from Pain to Joy. And you can get that one at Amazon.com, or you can go to angelicasgifts.com. Marilyn, it seems that angels pretty much have kept you alive.
Well, to be real truthful, that's exactly what's gone on with me. Because I came down from a higher consciousness onto the planet to help people, I fortunately I've had kind of an entourage of higher spiritual help. Archangel Michael has been with me the whole time. And in fact, I know he was with me in at least one, if not more, past lives to keep me so that I understood that I would get through it and my spirit would be eternal, and it was just the physical body being destroyed. I was in a past life as a little girl, and Chinese girl, and in the older times of China, little girls had no value, only the boys did, so a lot of the little girls were put out to die, and I was one of them. Wow. And I was put on a mountaintop for the vultures to eat me away.
Oh, and
Archangel Michael came and kept me spiritually, knowing that I was going to be okay in spirit. We don't die in spirit. That what was going on then had to happen. What I know today is we go through every energy in our souls to turn to love and transform it, and whatever is necessary to change, so we come into balance. What we're doing is coming into balance, and some people call it karma, but our past history, if it's current or past lives, I do past life regression with people. Mm-hmm. I'm internationally board certified to do that.
And people can get there by going to angelicasgifts.com?
Right.
Okay.
And so I know today that we have, and I'm also a lifetime member of the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and he says we go through every vibration to return back to our source. And so it doesn't have to be scary what you're going through. We just have to recognize it for what it is, call in spiritual help so that we have the strength to move beyond it. Instead of let our ego keep us back where we were, we can actually move out of that darkness and powerlessness and victimization and move into the grace of God. And that's the beautiful message for everyone, is that we can all, it's called growing up, becoming mature, or moving into unconditional love, but we can all do that because our spirit is eternal. We just keep coming back and raising it a little by little with each lifetime, closer and closer into being more conscious of God in our lives.
Wow, that's almost like a Buddhist teaching, isn't it?
Well, Buddhists have a really good way of approaching that, and it doesn't really matter what the label is, right, because there's other viewpoints that approach it. Mystics, I kind of consider myself a mystic today, which means the God is within. And instead of out there like churches tend to, that's what their philosophy is about. And so if you understand the dynamics and the energy of the universe and how to change that energy within you, that's the truth. And the truth does set you free when you know it. It's not just that it's written on paper. You have to literally apply it in your life and let it manifest so that you are living and walking and breathing that truth, and then it will bring you alive.
Hey, Marilyn, how important was meditation to all these things that you've learned and you've experienced? Was meditation a big step?
That was a huge step for me. That's a good question for me, because I had been raised in a very traditional church that did not believe in meditation. In fact, I went to church for 50 years. I took my children to church because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Right, yeah.
And I went to adult Bible classes while they were in Sunday school, and we actually had a book that was against meditation, and the minister at one point said, well, you don't listen to the voice inside because that's the devil. And so for me, as I joined 12 Steps, part of that is a conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation. And what I learned, it was very, very scary to be open to God and let that voice actually happen for me, that be still and know that I am God. And to let that experience happen was very frightening at first. But when my life was so unmanageable that I really had no choice, because what was I doing was just making it worse instead of better. So when I laid on my back one day. I was in exhaustion. My psychiatrist had taken me out of teaching for 2 years because I was in utter exhaustion from being such a people pleaser, overachiever, workaholic, that he wanted me to get some rest because I'd been going 100 miles an hour all my life to be worthy.
Right.
And
don't forget
so
dying 12 times.
That would do something. And I said to God, I says, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I was a great doer in those days. Mm-hmm. And he says, now that I got you flat on your back, you're going to learn to meditate. So I said, I tried reading a book, didn't make sense to me. So I says, I'm just going to lay open completely to whatever comes and know that it's from you. And so I just totally opened myself to receiving those silent messages, and they did start coming. And then after a year, I had an experience where God said, now that you've been listening, now you're going to have to apply it in your life. And that was another very scary move, was not just to hear the messages coming to me in direction for my life, but to actually walk it and apply it. And the first message I had to walk through was to ask my husband for a temporary separation because I was in domestic violence and he was trying to kill me. Mm-hmm. And I was trying suicide. I had to get out. But I was 3 years old emotionally, and a 3-year-old doesn't leave home, right?
Well, pretty much you must have been pretty young emotionally because all these things have been taken from you, talking about, verbal, sexual abuse, everything like that. Pretty much you stop growing when that happens. Isn't that true?
Exactly. It actually stopped happening immediately after I was still a baby in arms. I was molested. And then my parents, through fighting every night, my real father was an alcoholic and my mother was mentally ill. They just didn't get along at all.
It's not a good combo.
And so seeing him beat her up one night, I became traumatized and stopped growing emotionally at the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
you shut down pretty much?
Incest at the age of 5. And then when I married, it turned out, my stepdad was a sex addict, and there was years and years of emotional, sexual incest. And then I married what I was used to, which was I married a sex addict. As part of, he was a psychopath, alcoholic, sex addict, rageaholic. And so the whole smear was just keeping me in that little 3-year-old state of mind in survival. And it wasn't until I started meditating that I started to grow up.
Gotcha. Guys, if you're just tuning in right now, I'm speaking with the incredible Marilyn Redmond. And in a minute, we're going to talk about her latest book, which is called Road to Success. And you can get that and more information about Marilyn at Amazon.com with all of her books. Also, you can get her services, her books, everything at AngelicasGifts.com. So, Marilyn, tell me about Road to Success. What's it about?
Well, it's an inspirational book for people looking how to improve their lives. I wrote the book prior to that was Paradigm Busters, Reveal the Real You, and it's the nitty-gritty of how do you change your life to become into a higher consciousness of unconditional love and grow up. But people need to have also inspiration to see that they can improve their lives without going some people don't have go the route I did, and they're looking for success in their lives. So the book's about spiritual success, how you can feel good inside and also have that manifest for you, which is real success is your inner success. And we do create our own reality. So when you find the inner success, the rest of what's around you falls into place. So it's actually 4 sections of the book that have ways to incorporate tools and understanding into your life to make your life feel better, and you can move forward out of the dilemmas or the problems, the depressions, whatever you have. So it's a way to say, hey, this is what I did in these situations, and it worked for me, and I did move out of my head into my heart. I did move out of my ego, and I am now spiritually directed, and that's where the love is in our lives. And when we move into that space, it's like heaven on earth.
That's amazing. Now, going back to when you were talking about angels, now exactly, just for the listeners here, because I guess I have questions too. Now, who exactly or what are angels? Are they just beings or spirits that are trying to do good for people? Can you explain what exactly an angel is?
Well, that's a marvelous question. Nobody's ever asked me before. So, angels are a level of energy. We're all energy fields. Life is all about vibrating energy.
Right.
And whatever your vibration at is where your consciousness is. So as you raise your consciousness, that's what Jacob's ladder represents in the Bible. So you move up the ladder of consciousness. So as you add more love into your life and release more of your old fears and worries, resentment, guilt, shame, you move into higher consciousness. As you get up the ladder of consciousness, you're more in tune, especially through meditation, through connecting with higher vibrations of spiritual help. And people call them angels, and of course we live in a material visual world, so people want to see what do they look like, what do they sound like, whatever, but they're energy. But they can produce into a fairly physical, I've seen my angels at times, they can be fairly physical if they drop their energy low enough for us to be able to see them. And because they're filled with love, they're there to support us always. We just have to be open to seeing it and receiving it so that we know we're always having spiritual help. And spiritual energy comes in different levels of consciousness, and some are called angels, some are called masters, some are called guides, spiritual guides. We can even get help from our relatives who have passed over. They can come back and help us through dreams. That's how I actually got into being able to see people who have passed over, as my aunt showed up in a vision and explained to me there is no hell, that she didn't go to hell because she committed suicide, but explained to me what happened, that she has to come back and do it again because she didn't resolve those issues on Earth that she needed to resolve. And it's, our planet's like a school, and so you get to do it over until you get it right, and it's like you can't pass first grade until you pass all the tests, so to speak, and she'll have to come back and redo that life and to continue on. So, it's different levels of energies, and as we move up through the energies, we become closer and closer to the source.
Wow.
But that loving energy is always with us, always there in different ways to help support us if we're open and receiving to it. And in our material world, everybody wants to label these things, and so the label is angels or masters, guides, whatever we choose, or I have a lot of archangels in my life. So whatever comes to me usually is the consciousness connected with where I am, because like attracts like.
Now, guys, if you're just tuning in right now, we're speaking with Marilyn Redmond, and the latest book is called Road to Success. You can get more information on Marilyn Redmond at Amazon.com. You can find her books there. Also, you can find all information about what she does and all these gifts that she has at angelicasgifts.com. Hey, Marilyn, I think it's really cool. One of the things about you and all your work with your books is that, don't you illustrate all your books?
Well, that turned out to be kind of a funny thing. I didn't plan on it. My writing teacher, one of my writing teachers, had a publishing company, and I went up after class and one night and said, because I was taking my poems to class, of course, and she was helping me, and I said, would you publish my poetry? And she looked at me and she said, yes. She says, I was hoping you'd ask. And so as I put the book together, I happened to have different illustrations I had on hand, and I inserted them into the book just for giving it a little more, because it was going to be such a skinny book, I just thought that would add to the book. So I put some illustrations, and I've been illustrating my books ever since, and it's really been fun because it seems like whatever I need illustrations, either I have what spiritually I'm told to reuse from various situations, or the new pictures show up, and I'm working on one right now. So it's really been fun to be able to illustrate my own books.
Yeah,
and I make my own covers, too. So the covers are from my own experience, and like when I became fearless, that's the picture on Paradigm Busters, Reveal the Real You, because orange represents Christ consciousness, and that was the gift I received when I faced my last fear. So my covers and my artwork and my writing all comes from inspiration or from God or channeled, however you choose to describe that.
Awesome. Hey, we're getting near the end of the program here, but don't worry, we're going to have Marilyn back on in another couple of weeks, so don't worry about that. But Marilyn, I right before we let you go here, you're somebody who's achieved so much. You've written so many books, you've helped so many people, and you've lived a life that is incredible. What would you say to people that might be going through a storm right now, might be going through something that's tough, and you're someone who's, been there and you've gotten through it? What kind of advice could you give to other people to help them along?
Well, that's really good. There's a couple simple things I would like to say. I literally had Jesus appear in my bedroom before all hell broke loose. Pardon me for saying that, but that's
okay.
Kind of what happened. And he told me to keep the faith. And I did not understand at the time why he was telling me to keep the faith. Well, as things started to unravel in my life, all of a sudden it made sense. I was to keep the faith. And then I had an experience where I received a message that said not to give up on yourself, because going through these experiences as you're transforming them into love, you're healing your karma. Love is healed through love heals karma. So as you're learning to choose to respond in love rather than fear as that little kid who's been scared and victimized, as you choose that, don't give up on yourself. It's a real challenge to face some of these things that need to be loved back into place and your balance brought back into your healthier life. And so to keep the faith and not to give up on yourself. I also have, my spiritual teacher says growing up is not for sissies.
That's good.
So hang in there and know, I guess my favorite Bible verse is all things work for good and those that are on the path and love God. So everything that's happening for you is really rearranging to bring you into a better place, because all things work for good. So don't give up on yourself, keep the faith, and know you're headed in the right direction.
Terrific, smart words. Marilyn, you are definitely one of the world's most amazing people. Thank you for coming on and sharing. And don't you guys forget, you pick up the latest book, which is called Road to Success. You can get that book and all the other books at Amazon.com. And also, if you go to AngelicasGifts.com, you can get a lot more information. Marilyn, I will be talking to you again. Thank you for being on WMAP. And pretty intense stuff. And you're a great guest. So thanks for being on.
I loved every minute of it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys. Marilyn Redmond right there. And right before I get off the air here, guys, I got to thank Lauren Hope, who was here and was doing some terrific work while I was away, and actually did some great shows with Kelly, and I really got to thank her and Virginia Armstrong, Diana, and Kelly, the whole crew, and really got a lot going on here at the station, just way too much, and it's a good thing. So we will be back, guys. Stay tuned. Listen to WMAP, and let me give you a guest that's going to be on this week, Mr. Rocky Romanella. These are the highlights of my conversation.
Introduce you to a very inspirational, motivational, and successful gentleman. His name is Rocky Romanella, and I'm going to tell you all about him in a minute when I get him up on the